Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of the Get On S Rugby podcast as we turn over a new leaf from autumn tests to winter European nights. The Investec Champions Cup returns to our screens this Friday with a new broadcaster and new faces as Premier Sports takes on the honour for this season. One voice you'll be getting familiar to hear is that of the man joining me this afternoon in commentator Rory Hamilton. Rory, it is great to have you on the show. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, really good to be on, and very much looking forward to this weekend. It's really exciting from a personal point of view to be covering a competition like this. It's really exciting for the channel, which it seems to be growing pretty rapidly at the moment, and particularly from a rugby point of view. And there's so much work going on behind the scenes to get all the logistics of everyone in the right place and make sure it can turn on when everyone switches to Premier Sports on Friday night for the opening game.
I can only imagine. And of course, this is also the 30th year of the competition. I'm sure you would have watched many of those 30 years over the past, or at least a few of them. Does that kind of tie into it as well? Just kind of not turning over a new leaf, but certainly a new chapter in the competition.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's a competition that has been associated for so long with Sky Sports. Then, BT and TNT, who I do work for as well. So yeah, it's really exciting that now Premier has joined the party, because it's a competition just like the history is so rich within it. I mean, that's incredible when you say that 30 years going back and you think of all the incredible memories that have been created. It's just magnificent to now think that we're becoming a part of that. So yeah, it's very cool. I'm very very much looking forward to it. As I'm sure everyone is. It's that sort of funny time of the season where everyone gets hyped up for the autumn internationals. You then have a week's break coming back to the domestic, and then it's like seriously ramped up again for Champions Cup, Challenge Cup, and then straight into Six Nations off the back of that. It's they really throw all the good stuff at us, keep everyone interested.
Yeah, it ties into what I said earlier about the kind of winter nights of Europe, because once you get into November and you like for someone of my age, you associate them with, BBC having maybe a Scotland game or a Welsh game, and then you'd watch the Irish matches, and then a few weeks later it's over to Sky Sports for the European action. Then before you know it, the Six Nations are around the corner. But we will focus on Europe. We are going to keep it kind of light and breezy. We'll kind of discuss, games you'll be covering. If we'll throw in a few predictions in there and see how they differ. But just on that, I believe you're at Glasgow this weekend. What games will you be doing? Will you be focusing on Glasgow mainly, or how's that going to look for you?
Yeah, Glasgow against Sale Sharks. So I'm I, I really think that this year, obviously, I do look at things from the point of view of the Scottish teams more often. When it actually comes to the commentary, it's a little bit different because I'm a neutral broadcaster as much as you know. Throughout the season, my interest and my emotions are probably more devoted to Glasgow and Edinburgh than anyone else. I do love that challenge of being presented with a team that maybe you don't watch all the time. I mean, Sale Sharks are full of names that your Curry brothers and Ford. There's loads of names in there. So it's exciting to see those names at Scotstoun, different from the usual URC, where you see. In fairness, it's fairly varied now. You're maybe getting the same team coming once every 2 years until you then get to playoffs. So, yeah, this is it's going to be a really good game. Sale have tended to struggle on the road, and I think from Glasgow's point of view, and actually from a URC point of view, uh, there's a responsibility that comes with being champions, and Glasgow, I would say, historically have underperformed in Europe. they haven't really made a mark. Certainly getting to anywhere near latter stages. They're a seriously good outfit, as you've seen throughout the years. I mean, they've had the battles, particularly with the Irish teams, Leinster, Munster mainly. There've been some epics, and going back Ulster as well. So I think they need to bring that onto the European scene, and to do it, they're going to have to take some big scalps. I think they'll fancy themselves at home against anyone, but 2 home wins doesn't get the job done. So they're going to have to find some big performances away from home as well. So starting up at home, I think they'll be pretty confident, even though they're playing a very good side. But I think that they will see it as a chance to get off to a winning start. You probably need to. I think you need to win your home games.
Yeah, that's actually something I earmarked for yourself. Was just, I do feel like I don't think there's a pressure on Glasgow in the kind of general rugby conversation, but I do think there's an expectation now of, probably should have beaten Quins last year in the around the 16 or quarterfinal, I can't remember which it was. And it's, coming back in, like, they've done it Loftus Versfeld to win the URC. They did it at Thomond Park. It's kind of like, go do it now. And it will be interesting to watch. I know they're a very fun team to watch, even just taking off my Irish hat for a second. They are a fun team to watch when they get going with, Tuipulotu and Jones, obviously almost the face of the team at this stage. So they'll be really fun. It just kind of on that. Is there any teams you are excited to watch over the coming weeks? Because I know you're usually on kind of URC mode, and you do get a lot of the same teams, but there's a lot of excitement, especially you look at Toulouse in France, you look at Bordeaux, a couple of the English teams. Is there anyone you're excited to watch, not just from a a working point of view, but just as a fan?
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of take it through the league's basis, because it doesn't just stop. As much as I said, like, I've got a loyalty to Scottish teams, I also love to see the URC teams doing well. Again, there's a thinking maybe in England and France that their leagues are a bit better, and I don't think results actually prove that. And I think the URC teams particularly stand up in that sense. So in that way, I do have a little bit of extra support. I love seeing a URC team beating a French or an English team as well. So I think the South Africans will be looking to make a mark. We saw the Sharks last season winning the Challenge Cup. How much would the South Africans love to take 2 European trophies out the continent and down to Africa? I mean, that would be their dream, I'm sure. So yeah, I think Sharks. Do you know what? All the South African teams can be brilliant to watch. So that's exciting. They certainly, I mean, Leinster will always catch people's eyes, particularly what's happened in the last few years and not getting over the line. Munster are always good for a big result. So I think that they're probably the names to look out for, the obvious names from the URC. And France, Toulouse champions. I'll look at it from a selfish point of view amongst a few of these, because I'll keep an eye out for the Scottish players. So, I'm looking to see Blair Kinghorn flying as well. Toulon, Racing. These are the names that we talked about, the 30 years in the European Cup. These are the names that really punctuate a lot of it. And then your English teams, Bath are sitting top of the league. They'll be class to watch. Again, I can look at it from my own point of view, and Finn Russell, looking to light things up on the European stage as well. Big year for him, particularly with the Lions, and maybe hoping to try and win something with Scotland. So yeah, I think that they're kind of the names that I'll be looking out for.
No, absolutely. And I'm just going to pop it up here for the pools, because when you go through them one by one, they look really exciting. I'm going to share my screen for anyone who's tuning in on other platforms. We might just take a quick look at it and see who we see coming out on top here. So just let me know when you can see that there, Rory.
Yep.
Well, pool one, we have for people on audio, for pool one, we have Toulouse, Bordeaux, Hollywood Bets Sharks, Exeter Chiefs, Leicester Tigers, and Ulster. I'll go first and give you a second to think about it because I was kind of thinking as you were going through the last one. You have to look at Toulouse and Bordeaux as probably being 1 and 2, especially with their form in recent years. I've got Sharks and Ulster representing the URC there, representing the Irish teams, and then
Yep.
Leicester and Exeter. How do you see that pool playing out?
Yeah. Oh, see, I think this one. I'm probably going to do this with all the pools as well. Like they all look so tough. I always envisage this as when you're looking at maybe your team and going, wow, like how'd you get through that? Toulouse favourites. I think thereafter it comes down to how well you travel, which I think is probably the main thing that might hold back the South African teams. So that might make things a little bit difficult for the Sharks. And you know what, the French don't tend to travel all that well. I like the Irish for a result. I'm gonna go Ulster second, Bordeaux, Sharks, Leicester, Exeter.
I like that one. There'll be a couple of Ulster fans listening in who will have fist bumped in the car, I think, if after hearing that one, especially after I put them fourth, you went second. But I think that one's a really interesting one because you can make a case that everyone outside of Toulouse should win their home games and probably lose away. And then you're into bonus points and, all that kind of thing because we have seen obviously top four from every pool gets through, but the margins are so small. You do only need 2 wins. Pool two, we mentioned Leinster. They're in there alongside La Rochelle again, alongside Claremont, with Bristol, Benetton, and Bath. This one is an under the radar great pool because you've got Claremont who should do things at home because they always have done.
Yeah.
Bristol are in great form. Bath and La Rochelle are probably in that tier now of elite contenders, and obviously Leinster last year's finalists. I'll let you go first on this one. What way?
Oh wow. That is a brutal pool. I've been really interested in Bristol because they've been pretty fun in the Premiership. It is tough to see past Leinster. They maybe don't quite have the aura that they did of recent years. Wow. I will go. Oofed. I'll go Leinster, Bath, La Rochelle, Bristol, Claremont, Benetton.
I have the exact same. I was hoping you might go a little bit differently because I was going to go right. I go bold and I'm going to say Bath to beat La Rochelle on opening night, but that's
Mm,
kind of been taken away from me. But that's how I have it going as well. I actually think I think Bath could surprise people this year. They look so well drilled. They look like they're in great form. Obviously, everyone knows about Finn being there and guys like that. But I think Johan van Graan has them taken. Leinster you can't write off as well. La Rochelle not going great, but I think again it's one of those pools. It's like if you have to go to France in this pool, or even if Leinster obviously don't have the luxury, but playing Benetton's spring a surprise on anyone because
they
obviously
will. They will win. I'm not just saying they won't. They won't just win a game. They'll win games in that pool. Benetton at home are seriously tough.
they're not in great form, but it does feel like they'll win a game or two, and then if that happens, that blows it wide open again. I think
Yep.
that's really really interesting. I do think Leinster are probably the team to beat there, but
Yeah.
you do have the winners of recently, Bath, who Premiership finalists last year. And speaking of Premiership, because the Premiership winners are in Pool 3, it's Northampton and Munster yet again. It is the Bulls, Stade Francais, Saracens, and Cast. As we mentioned before, so important to if you're going to South Africa and how that swings things, because South African teams, they're not guaranteed 2 wins, but when you're the Bulls and you're playing at altitude and you've only lost 2 home games to Northern Hemisphere teams in the last few years, it's probably a big factor. I do have Northampton winning this. I know I'm a Munster fan, but I do have Northampton finishing on top here. followed by Munster, Saracens, Bulls, and I think Cast and Stade Francais will do what they always do and maybe take Europe less seriously, even though I think they'll both win an away game or a home game in there because Cast at home are, it's like old school. It's like old school rugby. Like it's so hard to go to. What way do you see this one going? Because I think this one is a really, really balanced pool.
It is. It's not got the sort of flash of the last pool, pool two. So it does make it very, very difficult to call. I think really anyone that can get an away win, that gives them a real chance. I I mean, I was almost going to say it could be just how they're listed there, but I think yeah, do you know what? I'm going to do that for the sake of ease. I'm going to keep it as they are there, 1 to 6, and that's a real like toss of a coin pool. That's really, really tricky.
And to be fair, like I do think, like obviously Stad are always a bit of an enigma in Europe, but so are Saracens now because obviously they lost the likes of Owen Farrell and guys like that. Andy Christie is out long term, but there's just always the factor of Saracens, and I think we're going to know an awful lot by round one because obviously we mentioned that Battle Rochelle game. You also have Saracens at home to the Bulls, and if Saracens, it feels like if they don't get a win there, because the Bulls will have all their frontliners who were playing the URC last weekend, then that could be them on the back foot because they still have to go to Thomond Park after that and they have to take on, the two French teams after that. Pool four is, well, if the last one was balanced, this one is this one is on a knife edge. So we got the URC champions Glasgow, you got Racing 92, Sale Sharks, the DHL Stormers, Toulon, and Harlequins. A couple of matchups of years gone by there with Quins Racing and Quins Glasgow. Stormers Glasgow have a bit of a rivalry brewing. This one is going to be so much fun. I'm going to say Glasgow to finish top, and I'll let you go from there. Then I'll come back to it.
Wow. I mean, you talk about Glasgow and rivalries. I feel like they'll take a rivalry with anyone. There's always been a good historical one with Munster, hasn't there? Wow, picking a winner in this group. I think from a Glasgow perspective, things might have changed up in the last week with Adam Hastings' injury, because I think that forces their backline, certainly from 10, 12, 13, almost, well, you still got options, but it's probably then Tom Jordan, Tui Pilotu, and Hugh Jones with the option of Stafford McDowell. But you take Adam Hastings out, he almost certainly would have been the starting, well, not certainly, but certainly in the mix to be starting 10 versus Tom Jordan, who can also, as we've seen in the autumn, play 15. You've got Jack Dempsey out as well. So I think that makes things a little bit tougher for Glasgow. I think they're saying Dempsey may be back just in time for the Six Nations. Hastings, I think, out for the Six Nations, and that's two big losses for Glasgow. That said, you've already put them top, so as a Scotsman, I couldn't go against that. From there on in, I will go Toulon, Quins, Racing, Sale, Stormers. That seems harsh on the Stormers, but I mean, Stormers, they'll probably win 2 at home. That could be wrong.
It's a weird one because in some ways it's the easiest South African venue to win in because of the conditions, but at the same time you still have to fly down to South Africa on a week's notice, and that's incredibly difficult. And they've got Sasha back, obviously Damien injured, which is a massive loss for them to have, as well as Kitsov. But I actually had Toulon bottom, so that's where it's kind of like Toulon are hard to get a read on. I have Glasgow Quins, which, look, that's probably decided based on a coin toss there. I've got Racing, although they are without Owen Farrell, so that does seem a bit high. Then Stormers, then Sale, then Toulon. But again, it's one of those pools where you're looking at it and you're just thinking, Glasgow at home are so formidable, probably more than anyone else here. Like, but then at the same time, if Racing get Owen Farrell back for say round 3, those 2 wins, if they could win their last 2 games, that could be crucial. Quins, like, they got all the way to a semi-final last year and deservedly so. So you can't write them off.
Yeah.
Toulon, yes, they're a bit of an enigma, don't get me wrong, but the Stormers are thereabouts. They have the quality. It's just about getting everyone on the field at the same time. It really is, like, number one, it's a fun pool to watch from a neutral
Yeah.
perspective. But I think it's going to be a fun pool for yourself to be covering. Maybe not come round 4 because I think the permutations could be tight, but it should be
Yeah.
a fun one to keep an awful strong eye on.
Maybe one for the calculator come round 4. That's for sure.
So we have Glasgow, Northampton, Leinster, and Toulouse topping the pools. You could pretty fairly say that that's the top 4 teams in Europe. Everyone to their own on that one. But if you were to call it, then who do you see in the final in Cardiff come May? I had to double check there for a second. Who do you think it'll be?
I think a repeat of last year. Toulouse Leinster.
That's what I'm leaning towards as well, especially with the way the pools are set up, because I think you can back both those teams to get 18 plus points in those pools if they click. Then again, there's always the chance of a shock. There's always the chance La Rochelle come good again, or maybe Bath pull off a surprise somewhere, or Northampton. But I do think it's really interesting. I know you're excited to cover. We'll be excited to watch. For anyone who's going to be tuning into Premier, I believe all games are live in the UK, if I'm right. A little bit different here in Ireland, but that's due to Premier League rights and things like that can't be avoided. Sure. But should be a lot of fun. So you're at Glasgow Sale this weekend, round 2. Will we catch you?
Round 2. Let me. I just need to bring up my my calendar because I do football as well. So sometimes, in fact, actually, round 2, I'm doing the Challenge Cup. I am doing Edinburgh against Bayonne on the Friday night. I was down to do Bulls Quins maybe on the Saturday. Can't remember. Maybe Bulls Northampton, I think. But it is Celtic Rangers in the Premier Sports Cup final on the Sunday. So rather sensibly, I've been given the Saturday off to kind of concentrate on that rather than going over to do another game. And then I've got round 3 Glasgow Racing, and round 4 I don't think I've got a game either, actually, because it is Scottish Cup. So Premier have got 3 games in that: Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So yeah, there's quite a few where there's no rest for me. But I will be watching from afar of all these results and all the happenings over the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know there'll be plenty of, as much as this is an Irish podcast, there'll be plenty of people who'll be tuning into Celtic Rangers in 2 weeks' time. So they'll be well used to your voice and to all the team. It's a brilliant panel that you've assembled there, not just commentators, but pundits as well. It should be fun to see it. But Rory, thank you so much for joining me. It has been fun to do something a little bit different and to, obviously talk about Premier, but also the competition at large. For listeners to the show, I'm going to be taking a break on this channel for the foreseeable, but we will be back with European pods before we get into the Six Nations, which, as we spoke about earlier, it's going to come so quickly. We won't have time to think about the interpros or things like that at Christmas time. But again, thanks, Rory, for coming on. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. But for now, and until next time, enjoy the return of the Champions Cup. Till next time, take it easy.